In the rugged landscape of the Wild West, where dust and danger roamed hand in hand, Dusty Barber carved out a name for himself that echoed through every saloon and trading post. He was not an ordinary outlaw, he was a notorious bandit feared by many and respected by a few. Born to a farming family, Dusty had once been an honest man with dreams of prosperity. However, the harsh realities of frontier life led him down a darker path. As he grew older, his charm and quick wit transformed into cunning skills of thievery. With his trusty horse, he became known as a master of disguise, slipping in and out of towns, leaving only whispers of his presence behind. His daring heists included trains laden with gold and banks bursting with cash, each escapade cementing his reputation as one of the most skilled bandits in the region. Dusty's image was that of a rugged figure, often clad in a dusty brown duster coat, with piercing blue eyes that could charm or intimidate depending on his intentions. Tales of his escapades spread like wildfire, instilling fear in law-abiding citizens but inspiring admiration among fellow outlaws. He personified both danger and thrill, making him a figure larger than life itself. Yet beneath the hardened exterior was a man grappling with loneliness and regret. Dusty Barber was not just a bandit, he was also a man searching for redemption in a world filled with shadows and choices that often led him astray. One fateful afternoon, Dusty Barber and his gang set their sights on the Wells Fargo Bank in the sleepy town of Silver Creek. It was a place where people felt safe, unaware that danger was lurking just outside their doors. Dusty had meticulously planned the heist, using his charm to gather information about the bank's schedule and security measures. As the sun rose high in the sky, casting long shadows on the dusty streets, the stage was set for what would become a chaotic turning point in his life. As Dusty and his crew entered the bank, the plan seemed foolproof. They swiftly rounded up the patrons and demanded cash. The sweet scent of adrenaline filled the air as they loaded bags of money onto their horses. However, just as they were about to make their escape, an unexpected complication arose. A brave bank teller, who had been hiding behind a counter, managed to sneak out and alert the sheriff's posse. Within minutes, gunfire erupted outside as lawmen surrounded the bank. Dusty realized too late that their getaway route was blocked. In the chaos that ensued, he was hit in his shoulder by a stray bullet. Pain seared through him as he stumbled back into the bank. With blood staining his shirt and panic rising among his men, Dusty knew this heist had turned disastrous, and survival now depended on his quick thinking amid mounting chaos. As the dust settled from the chaotic scene at the bank, Sheriff Tom Collins arrived on horseback, his presence commanding and calm in the face of turmoil. He had spent years earning the trust of Silver Creek citizens, and now he faced the reality of an angry mob demanding justice for Dusty Barber's crimes. Driven by a desire to protect the community and restore peace, Sheriff Collins knew he had to act swiftly. After assessing the situation, he called for a town meeting under the big oak tree in the town square. Citizens gathered, their faces etched with concern and anger. The sheriff spoke with conviction about how violence would not solve their problems. Instead, he proposed an audacious plan: he would offer Dusty Barber an amnesty deal if he cooperated fully with law enforcement. The sheriff believed that Dusty's knowledge of other criminals could help rid their town of further danger. "Let's give him a chance to turn his life around," he urged the crowd. "If Dusty agrees to help us catch others like him, we can provide him protection and a new start." Some townspeople were skeptical, urging for swift retribution instead. However, Sheriff Collins remained steadfast in his belief that inner peace was worth pursuing even if it meant taking a risk on the notorious bandit. Meanwhile, news of this offer reached Dusty as he lay wounded, sparking a flicker of hope within him amid his pain and desperation. The townsfolk of Silver Creek gathered in the square, a seething mass of anger and disbelief. Emotions ran high as Sheriff Collins presented his plan for Dusty Barber's amnesty, and their murmurs quickly turned into shouts of outrage. "How can you trust a bandit?" one man yelled, his face flushed with outrage. "He's the reason we live in fear." As the crowd grew restless, women clutched their children tighter, fearing that even a hint of mercy toward Dusty would only bring more danger to their doorstep. The mob felt betrayed by the sheriff, a man they had looked up to for years as their protector. How could he offer a second chance to someone who had robbed them of peace? They believed that justice should come from the barrel of a gun, not an olive branch. "We should hang him from the oak tree," shouted another voice in the crowd, echoing the general sentiment that punishment was necessary. Many echoed this demand, feeling that only by making an example of Dusty could they secure their safety and restore order in Silver Creek. Sheriff Collins stood firm, trying to reason with the angry townspeople. He explained that true justice required understanding and knowledge. Dusty's past crimes might lead them to prevent future robberies if given the chance to cooperate. But amidst the cries for vengeance, it was clear that convincing the mob would be an uphill battle. Each face reflected fear mingled with a desire for retribution, making unity feel like an impossible dream. As the days passed in Silver Creek, the tension between Sheriff Collins and the mob escalated, deepening the divide within the town. Each morning, small groups gathered in the square to voice their opinions, creating a murmur of discontent and fear that seemed to hang in the air. The sheriff found himself caught in a precarious position, trying to uphold the law while facing an increasingly hostile crowd. Supporters of the sheriff argued for a chance at redemption for Dusty Barber, believing that cooperation could lead to greater safety for all. They felt that punishing him harshly would not solve the problem; instead, it could drive more desperate men to crime. However, the other side of the mob was adamant. "He's a scoundrel, and scoundrels deserve the noose," they shouted, unwilling to entertain any notion of mercy. The atmosphere grew more charged with each confrontation, marked by rising voices and heated debates. Neighbors began to argue among themselves, friendships strained under the weight of differing views on justice and morality. Some argued that if they didn't hang Dusty as an example, they would be sending a message that crime would go unpunished. Sheriff Collins, weary from the conflict, stood firm in his belief that taking a risk on Dusty could lead to lasting peace. He knew that if they didn't find common ground soon, Silver Creek might fracture irreparably, transforming from a close-knit community into a battleground of fear and vengeance. The growing discontent was a ticking clock, and how it would end was anybody's guess. As Dusty Barber lay in hiding, nursing his shoulder wound, he faced an agonizing decision that weighed heavily on his mind. The thought of accepting the sheriff's offer filled him with a mix of hope and dread. On one hand, the prospect of amnesty seemed like a golden opportunity to escape the life of fear and violence he had led for so long. Dusty was tired of running, tired of being a target for the law and the angry mob alike. Perhaps by cooperating, he could finally start anew. Yet, the image of the mob loomed large in his thoughts, their furious faces and their cries for vengeance echoed in his mind. He felt a deep sense of betrayal. His crimes had hurt these people, and they were unlikely to forgive or forget easily. Dusty wrestled with guilt and shame as he recalled the pain he had caused the townsfolk. Would they ever see him as anything more than a bandit? As he contemplated the risks, he felt the sharp throb from his wounded shoulder, a reminder of his current precarious situation. Would turning himself in lead to a chance at redemption, or would it simply seal his fate at the hands of those seeking revenge? Fear clenched at his heart as he realized that whatever choice he made would define not only his future but also the future of Silver Creek. Faith in second chances clashed fiercely with the instinct for self-preservation, leaving him hanging on the precipice of decision. With his wound throbbing and time running out, Dusty Barber began to formulate a daring plan. He understood that simply accepting the sheriff's offer wouldn't be enough to win over the townspeople. He needed to prove he was more than just a bandit. He decided that if he were to regain the townsfolk's trust, he would need to take action that showed his commitment to making things right. Dusty envisioned a way to confront his past and demonstrate his sincerity. With much effort, he managed to gather some supplies despite the pain radiating from his shoulder. His idea involved exposing a gang of criminals that had been preying on nearby settlements, using the chaos of the recent bank robbery as a distraction. Dusty believed that if he could lead the sheriff and the townspeople directly to these ruffians, it would not only protect Silver Creek but also highlight his willingness to cooperate. As night fell, Dusty made his way through the shadows, careful not to attract attention. He knew he had little time before the mob's thirst for revenge would drown out any chance for redemption. With each step, he rehearsed how he would convince Sheriff Collins and the townsfolk that he could be their ally instead of their enemy. If successful, this daring venture could turn public opinion in his favor and break the cycle of fear and violence that had gripped Silver Creek. Dusty knew it was a long shot, but desperation fueled his resolve. It was now or never. As dawn broke over Silver Creek, the air was thick with tension as Dusty Barber emerged, battered but determined, to confront both the sheriff and the mob. He had gathered information on the gang he intended to expose, and now it was time to put his plan into motion. The townsfolk, restless and eager for justice, had gathered in the square, their faces a mix of anger and uncertainty as they awaited word from both Dusty and Sheriff Collins. With his shoulder still throbbing, Dusty stepped forward, heart racing. "I know you want my head," he began, his voice clear despite the fear coursing through him. "But I'm here to show you that I can help. There are criminals out there who have been terrorizing this town even longer than I have." The crowd murmured, torn between their desire for vengeance and curiosity about what Dusty had to say. Sheriff Collins stood nearby, ready to support Dusty, but he could feel the mob's hostility rising. Someone in the back shouted for Dusty to be hanged, igniting a wave of agreement among the crowd. "You don't have to trust me," Dusty urged passionately. "But let me prove myself. Help me take down the real threat." The sheriff took a step forward, echoing Dusty's words about safety and cooperation. Yet, the mob continued to waver between punishing the bandit they once feared and listening to his desperate plea for redemption. Crucial moments ticked away as decisions loomed over them all. Would they find common ground, or would old grudges drive them apart? The outcome hung in the balance like a finely tuned scale waiting for a single push. As the tension in the square reached its peak, something unexpected shifted in the crowd. A woman named Clara stepped forward, her voice rising above the angry shouts. "We've all lost something to fear," she said, her eyes wide with urgency. "Dusty may have made mistakes, but he's offering to help us take back our town." Her words hung in the air, prompting a ripple of murmurs among the townsfolk. Clara's plea struck a chord, and one by one, others began to voice their thoughts. "He could be our only chance," someone called out from the back. "If he knows where the gang is hiding, we should listen." The mob's fury slowly transformed into cautious curiosity as they began to reconsider their stance. Sheriff Collins seized the moment, stepping beside Dusty and echoing Clara's sentiments. "Together, we can restore peace," he urged. "Let's not lose sight of what we're fighting for." With the sheriff backing him, Dusty felt a surge of hope. He quickly laid out his plan, detailing how they could ambush the gang with their combined strength. The atmosphere shifted from hostility to tentative solidarity. After a tense moment of silence, a voice from the crowd shouted, "Let's give him a chance." In that instant, the town of Silver Creek began to unite. Instead of punishment, they chose a path of cooperation, banding together to confront the real threat that loomed outside their borders. As Dusty stood surrounded by newfound allies, he realized that redemption was possible, not just for him, but for the entire community. Together, they prepared to reclaim their town and transform their fear into courage. As the dust settled in Silver Creek and the gang threat was finally neutralized, both Dusty Barber and Sheriff Tom Collins took a moment to reflect on the events that had unfolded. Dusty, now surrounded by townsfolk who had once sought his head, felt a deep sense of gratitude. "I never thought I could earn a second chance," he admitted, his voice steady but tinged with emotion. "This experience taught me that even the darkest paths can lead to redemption if we're willing to face our fears and take responsibility for our actions." Sheriff Collins, standing beside him, nodded in agreement. "Leadership isn't just about enforcing the law, it's also about understanding when to show mercy," he said, his gaze sweeping over the town. "I realize that the law must serve the people, and sometimes justice means giving someone a chance to prove they can change." The sheriff paused, reflecting on how close the town had come to tearing itself apart. "This town has learned that unity is stronger than vengeance," he continued. "Together, we can overcome anything, fear, anger, even old grudges." As they looked out at the community they had fought to protect and rebuild, both men felt a sense of hope. The bonds formed through shared struggle could not be easily broken. Dusty understood that his past didn't define him, and Collins recognized that true leadership often involves taking risks for the greater good. United in purpose, Silver Creek emerged stronger, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead together.